Hello, welcome to this month's Community Hangout session. I'm really excited to chat to you all again because I didn't actually manage to get to do the Community Hangout session last week, last month, because basically, last month the beginning of the month got off to a very sort of slow start at first. I was like Easter holidays, and then like Easter weekend, and then during the first week of Easter, or April, sorry, I had to do like loads of finance and accounting stuff for Frienda Mentor, so I wasn't able to do any any kind of actual work on Frienda Mentor that I love doing normally. And also then my body must have had a allergic reaction to all the accounting stuff for some reason, but I then fell ill a little bit, which wasn't too fun. And so I decided kind of not to do the Community Hangout session for last month, but I'm excited to do a kind of extra large one today and go through kind of what we've been working on and what the latest news is. Do say hello in the chat. Let me know you're in there. And yeah, as always, at the end of the session, I'll be doing an Ask Me Anything. So if you've got any questions whatsoever, anything that you would like to go through, it could be your web development journey, learning, anything like that, advice, any suggestions for Frontend Mentor, please do feel free to just type in the comments and just ask any questions that you've got. So yeah, I like this month's Community Hangout session. Yeah, I'm just really excited to do this. So I'll just dive straight in. And the first big bit of news actually that happened in April is actually we've got a new person working on the code base, which is actually huge, because normally it's just me and then Mike as well, my co-founder, who works on the code base, and we just work on it together. Mike works full-time at a company called FutureLearn, so he only works on it kind of weekends, evenings, whenever he can pick up work, basically, whereas obviously I'm full-time on it now. But it means that there's a bit of a bottleneck, because now it's at a point where I'm getting kind of pulled in lots of different directions, whether that's with kind of marketing or just running the business in general, all of this kind of stuff. Hey Adil, hey Sebastian, hey Tadiko, great to see you all here. And so I've been the last few months, you might have noticed in some of my monthly updates that I've been kind of planning to do things, and then I've got pulled away from those things and not actually been able to get them done, which has been really frustrating. So the first bit of great news is that we've got another person working on the front end code base, and that is Apple Pie Giraffe. So Apple Pie Giraffe, as you all know from Frontend Mentor, just does amazing work within the community, submits amazing solutions, gives amazing support to others. So I thought I'd reach out to him and see if he fancied doing a bit of work on Frontend Mentor. So now we've got Apple Pie Giraffe working on the front end code base of Frontend Mentor, which is amazing. I'm so happy to have him on board. And it's going to help move everything along faster, because it means that I'm not the bottleneck for building out new things on the front end now. So we've got APG. I can dive into the code base when I've got some time as well. We've got APG working on it, which is amazing. So that's really cool. And also some exciting news to look forward to is Mike is going to be coming on board full-time as well. In June, he's going to make the transition to start working on Frontend Mentor 3 days a week, and then kind of transitioning out of his job at FutureLearn. And then in July, Mike will be coming on board full-time and just focusing on Frontend Mentor, which is kind of the goal that we've had ever since starting it, was to get us both full-time on it and hopefully start building out a team and growing the platform as big as possible to help as many developers as possible, gaining real life skills of building projects, and then also actually helping them get hired and finding work and all of this kind of stuff. So really exciting times, very excited to have APG on board. and extremely excited to get Mike on board as well, full-time in the summer. So just diving back to March 1st, because I didn't manage to do this last month, I just want to run through some of the updates that were made in March. There was some nice, exciting updates made. And then I'll go through this month, this past month, so April. Then I'll dive into what we've got coming this coming month. And then I'll field any of your questions. Like, please do feel free just to start posting questions in the chat, and I will get to your questions as soon as we dive into the Ask Me Anything section. I'll be more than happy to help you out as much as I can. So first couple of things, we added we restricted the list of URLs or hosting providers that you can use to submit your solution. So things like Vercel, Netlify, GitHub Pages, these kind of hosting providers, we restricted it to those and a few others as well. This is just because, and this was a slightly random one, but I started noticing some very odd solutions that weren't even they weren't websites for even Frontend Mentor at all. So I just wanted to nip that in the bud before any very dodgy kind of websites started getting promoted or started leaking through to the solutions page, which is obviously something that we don't want at all. And so we restricted it to certain providers. What that means is, unfortunately, you can't, if you've got your own website, you are if you've got your own website, you can't post a solution that's on your website at the moment. You'd have to submit it with a Netlify link or a Vercel link or a GitHub Pages link, but then you could obviously still have that project on your website as well, if you wanted to. So that's just a small change. It's more of a kind of security thing, just to make it a little bit harder for people to post solutions that aren't related to, or projects that aren't related to Frontend Mentor. Also, I wrote an article, and this is something I've been meaning to do for a while, called How to Get the Most Out of Frontend Mentor. And what I'll do actually after this, I'll link it in the description as well. And this article is there to give all of my tips and tricks for how to get the most out of the platform. There's so many things that you can do on the platform now, posting solutions, giving feedback to each other, all of this kind of stuff. And I just wanted to give a good kind of process for how you can learn the most and how you can make the most out of being on the platform. And so what I do now is any new people, new community members that sign up, I have a call to action in that kind of welcome email that just says learn the best tips and tricks to work on Frontend Mentor, but I'll link that in the description as well after this, because it's really, really useful. Because I mean, this platform, we've had people literally getting jobs or getting interviews off the back of their Frontend Mentor profiles and off their Frontend Mentor projects that they've been building. So I want to help as many people as possible do that and find work and everything, which will be really exciting. But I just want to give all my tips and tricks for how you can best kind of go about making the most out of the platform itself. So we added a field in the user settings so that you could add your Slack username to your profile on Frontend Mentor. So this was actually a request from M in the community, and she said it's great having the two Slack and the platforms sitting side by side, but sometimes she'll chat to people on the platform and then can't find them in Slack, and vice versa. And so this was just a small little change just to make it so that in your profile settings now, if you're in the Slack community and on the platform, on your profile settings on the platform, you can now add your Slack username, and then people will show up in your profile, and people will easily be able to find you in the Slack community and then DM you and chat further. Another thing that we did was add some Hashnode and Code Wars link options to your profile. Hashnode and Code Wars are really, really really big kind of developer communities and platforms for different things. Code Wars for kind of problem solving and logic-based challenges and all of this kind of stuff. Hashnode for blogging These are both like really, really well-known developer platforms, and they weren't on the profile before as options to be able to link to, but now we've added those. So if you go to your profile settings now, if you've got a Hashnode blog or you've got a Code Wars profile, then please feel free to link those, and then people will be able to easily find you across the web. And then the last major update that we made in March and this was for pro subscribers, was to add the ability to say that you're looking for work. So in the profile settings now, you will see a little checkbox that will just say, I'm available for work. And if you check it, it will add a Hire Me button onto your profile. When that button's clicked, it will open up a text area where someone can fill in the details, and then it will just ping you a email straight away. So it's no kind of DMs like messaging on the platform. That's something that we will look to do in the future. But at the moment, it will just ping you an email with the person's name, email address, and message. And then they might be saying kind of, we've got a contract position coming up soon, or we've got a new entry-level developer role coming up soon. We'd love to talk to you. So this will just help people kind of share that they're looking for work. And so anyone that comes to your profile, if you've got that enabled, will see a little Hire Me button, and they'll say, oh, this person's looking for work. I'll ping them a message and see what their availability is like. So those were the major updates in March. And I can see a few questions coming in, which is great. Please do feel free to just keep on asking those questions. And actually, I'll get to Matthias's one pretty quickly, actually, because that's all about prioritizing the roadmap, features, all of this kind of stuff, which is really, really interesting stuff, and definitely related to obviously all of these new features that I'm going through now. So this past month that's just been April, we had some more changes that we were going to make. One of my plans was to start doing some UI updates, which I've been planning to do for a little while. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that because we had some other things that we were focusing on and kind of prioritizing above those. But the good thing is that now with APG on board, he's already done a couple of those cards, and we're going to start rolling out those UI updates very, very soon, which is really exciting. So in April, one of the major ones, and this was actually APG's first big ticket to pick up, was refactoring our styled components structure in the Frontend Mentor code base. And this was a great one just to get, especially to get APG up and running on the Frontend Mentor code base, get him working on lots of different parts of the code base, and but in a kind of fairly low friction way. So when building our front end stack is Next.js, which is a React framework, and then styled components for the styling. As we built it out, so when I started Frontend Mentor, since I started Frontend Mentor and started building it, styled components has gone on a few kind of iterations, a few major updates, and so we haven't kind of revisited it and kind of refactored the code. Plus, I was also not kind of necessarily using it in the most optimal way. It's a constant struggle, or it has been a constant struggle for me while I've been building this, to kind of build things as fast as possible versus in the best practice, because obviously I get pulled in so many different directions that when I'm building something new, I want to build it and make it kind of as good as possible. But at the same time, I've made a few shortcuts in the code base at different points of the development cycle. And the styled component side of things was definitely one of those where I just made it look good versus the design. And I mean, this is obviously slightly embarrassing, having built Frontend Mentor and having it as Frontend Mentor, the platform. But especially when you're creating a company, sometimes in the early days, there's this trade-off between just getting things launched and getting things out there and actual sort of quality of the code base. So great thing with APG, he just came in, jumped into the styled components. I've seen him use styled components on projects before on Frontend Mentor. So knew that he was more than comfortable just kind of diving into that. And so he got to work. And now the whole Frontend Mentor front-end code base is structured so much nicer and so much easier to work with, and it will help us move faster in the future as well. So next up, another feature we added was, and this is like a small thing that will make a big difference, which is just adding query params to the challenges index. So you might have noticed on the challenges index, as you kind of click filters, like say you want a free challenge and a newbie level challenge and all of this kind of stuff, as you click these different filters, if you then clicked one of the challenges and moved through to that page and then went back to the challenges index, you may have noticed that your filters just get lost, and then you have to like add the filters again, which is definitely not the best user experience and something we've been meaning to kind of solve like for a little while now. And I'm pleased to say that that is now solved. So if you go to the challenges index and start adding some filters, you'll notice the URL changes. So we're adding query params to that, changing the sorting order and all of this kind of stuff. And what that means is now, if you do move through to a challenge to take a look at it and then go back to the challenges index, it will maintain the browser history. So it will maintain that URL, and then it will filter the challenges based on those parameters, which is a much better user experience. We still got some UX, like overall discovery, like user experience stuff to do. Like for instance, a search bar on the site is getting pretty big now, where it would be quite nice to just be able to search a term on Frontend Mentor, whether that's a user's username or whether it's the name of a challenge or the potential name of a solution or a technology like React or something like that. It would be great to just be able to search it and then just have a bunch of things come back related to that search. So that's something that we're definitely planning to do to, again, improve discoverability and searchability on the platform. But that challenges index was definitely kind of a quick win that we could get done, which was good. I'm seeing some great questions coming in. I'm excited to get to these in a little bit. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please do feel free to just add them to the chat, and I'll just work through them when we get to the AMA part of the session. So another update that we added last month in April, we removed comment downvoting, which was, so we added this, but we removed it really. We decided that comment downvoting doesn't really have a place on Frontend Mentor, because when I started Frontend Mentor, it was just very much like a forum, and I had in my mind things like obviously Reddit and Stack Overflow and these kind of platforms that have got upvotes and downvotes. And upvotes and downvotes are a great way to sort comments and kind of show which comments are good or maybe not so great or not so helpful. But actually, now that we've got kind of over 100,000 people on, or over 140,000 people on the platform, it's just very, very rare that anyone ever gives a kind of really bad comment that would warrant a downvote, which is a good thing. Like that's a testament to the Frontend Mentor community and you all like being so helpful and open and supporting of each other, which is all of the values that we want to have as a community. And so there wasn't really a place for the downvote. The only place that you could potentially then use the downvote is if like someone made an inappropriate comment or something like that. But again, that's a very, very rare thing that happens. So I decided to just take the downvotes out altogether and only have an upvote. And this means that you've got two choices. You can either just not do anything at all when you come across someone's comment, or if you think that it's a really helpful comment, whether it's on your solution or not, if you think that it's a nice comment that someone's made, you can choose to upvote it, which is great. So we're going to have that going forward. One of the changes that we've got coming up, and this will hopefully be shipped this month, one of the plans to ship this month, is that we'll add another action that you can take, and this will be for the solution authors. So let's say that you've submitted a solution and someone has come into the comments and given you some really, really good feedback. At the moment, everyone would just be able to upvote that comment, which is great. But at the same time, it doesn't feel quite right that kind of the solution author's upvote and everyone else's upvotes carry the same weight, because actually, if you're the solution author, you almost want to be able to be like, thank you very much. Like, that was a really, really helpful comment. And I really, really appreciate that. And obviously you'll write a reply anyway, hopefully anyway. But what we're going to now do is say that you can upvote the comment, which is great. But then also, if you're the solution author, you'll have the option to mark it as helpful. So you'll be able to say, like, this comment was helpful. Because some people might just come in and say, like, oh, you've done an awesome job on this solution, like, great work, keep it up, this kind of stuff. And that's a really nice comment, and that's definitely warrants an upvote because it's really supportive. But at the same time, it might not be like, oh, this has solved all of my questions that I was asking and this kind of stuff. So so you might upvote it, but not mark it as helpful. And this is just going to be a nice way to differentiate a little bit. So only the solution author will be able to mark it as helpful. If the solution author marks your comment as helpful, it will be worth more for your mentor score. Like, it will be worth more points than if someone just upvotes your comments. So we'll be having a little shift in how the point system works on the platform this month, which will be cool. So that'll be really interesting to see how that works and how those dynamics, how it changes things. So another thing that we've got coming up, and I mentioned this very briefly earlier, was that we've got these UI updates. And you may have seen me in the design channel over the last couple of months posting kind of new UI for Frontend Mentor and designs and getting opinions and all of this kind of thing. And this is essentially going to be those changes. So there's going to be changes to the resources items on the resources page, the challenge items, like the challenge cards on the challenges index and the homepage. It will also be the comments. So the comments UI is going to change inside of the feedback, and also the solution items themselves. So like the solution cards on the solutions index and also on your profile. So you'll start noticing those UI changes happening. So really excited about those because they're pretty nice. Like our designer Kevin has done a really, really good job with those. So I'm excited to get those live. And then so we've got the markers helpful button. We've got the UI updates. And then the last one is just planning, really. And that's mostly on my side, is just one of the next big things that we want to tackle is to build out the reporting feature on Frontend Mentor a bit more, both on the free side and on the pro subscription side as well. So at the moment, when you submit your solution on Frontend Mentor, we run your code through a HTML validation check. We run your code through an accessibility audit. And these provide some kind of to-dos. It might be some errors or some warnings. And they're really helpful to just kind of highlight potential issues within your code. But we want to build this out to a much higher fidelity so that you have all the tools to really like dive into your code, but get a good overview of your code at the same time. So one of these things is going to be some CSS statistics. And this will be really nice because we will be able to show you, how your CSS looks, but from a nice overview, kind of high level. So we'll be able to do things like checking what kind of selectors you're using, whether you're using like IDs and classes and attribute selectors and element selectors and all of this kind of stuff. Also things like specificity graphs. So being able to graph and show like the specificity of your selectors. And hopefully that will be a fairly kind of low and steady graph. If you've got big spikes, then it will show that you're using like IDs and things like this in your selectors. So it will help you kind of visualize and see like, oh, actually, there might be some issues with my code here. So some CSS statistics, they're going to be really nice. And that's going to be free and available for everyone. And then for the pro subscribers, we're going to start building out our own kind of automated test suite that's going to give some suggested improvements based on your code. And the first version of this, the plan will be to just have a general, general suggestions based on commonly held best practices. Things like, for instance, if you submit your solution and you've got multiple H1s inside of your HTML, we would then be able to add a suggested improvement to say, actually, we'd recommend only having one H1 in the page. Then you can have as many H2s to H6s as you want. And then here are some resources to go off and research this a little bit more and figure out why using multiple H1s in a single page is actually maybe not such a good strategy. Or another example would be if you're using like max width media queries and not min width media queries, again, we might add a little suggested improvement in there that would say, we'd recommend checking out and using min width media queries. They are great and beneficial versus max width media queries because with mobile users, they will load in fewer resources. So if you're changing the size of the images that you're loading in for like background images, for example, then your mobile users will actually load in fewer resources. So it's a bandwidth saving. So we'll have a bunch of those general tests and add suggested improvements to your report. So and then the plan in the future will be to have more like challenge specific stuff. So for instance, if there's a challenge that has a color theme switcher like light and dark mode, we might, font sizes in pixels is a good one as well, Grace, definitely. And if you were to have a color theme switcher in the challenge, like the social dashboard challenge, we'd look at all of your media queries, and if you didn't have a prefers color scheme media query, for instance, inside of your CSS, we would say for this challenge, like using this prefers color scheme media query will be helpful because it will allow people who have set the settings to either light or dark as their preference on their actual computer will like just see that one by default, like that version by default. And again, just link to loads of resources and all this kind of stuff. So this will be cool because it will guarantee some sort of feedback. And one of my big goals with Frontend Mentor is to just keep on chipping away at it so that we get as many people as possible getting the feedback that they want. What the main goal is, like, if someone wants feedback, whether it's from the community or whether it's from the suggested improvements or anything like this, you will get some sort of useful feedback when you submit your solution if you're looking for feedback. So these are just some steps that we're taking towards this. I'm super excited about that. And yeah, this is going to be the planning of the CSS stats and the suggested improvements report updates. So there won't actually be any kind of new feature on that this month, but we'll be sort of planning it out and working towards it, which will be really, really exciting, and start to think of like, what are the actual tests that we need to do. So this will be really, really exciting. And yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, but as you all now know, we've got more hands working on the code base now, which is just brilliant. So it helps me with adding new features and all this kind of stuff. It will help us move much faster, which I'm excited about. Excellent. All right, so yeah, that's like what we've been up to for the last couple of months to catch up on me missing last month's Community Hangout session. Also, what we've got planned for this coming month with the UI updates, the markers helpful button, and the planning of the new reporting stuff with the CSS stats and the suggested improvements. Cool. All right, let's dive in and kind of go through some of your questions. So first question, and also if you haven't asked a question yet in the chat, do feel free, just ask your question and I'll just work through them one by one and get to them. So first question was by Matthias asking, how are you prioritizing the roadmap? At the moment, we've got we've got four different boards, actually. We've got the ideas and feature request board, which is like the highest level board where anyone that suggests a new feature, if I think there will be a really good addition to the platform or it warrants kind of more research, then I'll throw it on there, mark it as a feature request or an idea. And then that's the sort of highest level that's furthest back from our delivery board. And so things will move from that onto the product board or the improvements and fixes board. So the product board and the improvements and fixes board kind of sit side by side. Product board is like new stuff that we're going to be adding. Improvements and fixes is obviously like might be bugs or some refactoring or something like that. And they sit side by side, and then they filter through to the delivery board. And with those, so the improvements and fixes board and the product backlog board, those are just columns of now, next, later. We don't have any kind of timeframes on them or anything like that. We've also got a roadmap, as you were asking about the roadmap, of just very, very high level stuff that we're looking, which again is like now, next, later. And that's reserved for the really big, like the kind of epics, like the larger improvements. And so product board, improvements and fixes, now, next, later. As soon as we clear, so we've got the delivery board, which is then like doing, parked and needs discussion. Like if there's an issue with it, we've got a column then for like ready to stage. If you've done it and it's ready to go through to the staging, we've got QA on staging, and then we've got live on production. So those are all the columns that we've got on the delivery board. And as soon as the to-do column starts to get kind of quite short because we've started moving through everything and we've done a lot of tasks, then me and Mike will look at the now column for the improvements and fixes and the product backlog. We'll reprioritize stuff. And you're asking about prioritization. We don't have like a thorough prioritization framework yet. There's some good ones from like it's not Basecamp. I shouldn't say that word at the moment. Who is it from? Notion, I think, or Intercom have a good prioritization framework that I've kind of looked at, and it's kind of effort and like how many people it's going to affect and all of this kind of stuff. And I want to add those, like as we start professionalizing it a little bit more with me being able to look at more strategy and things, I want to start actually getting a prioritization framework together. But at the moment, it's very much based on like how many requests we've got for certain things. Like the filters on the challenges index was like really, really, like lots of people were asking for that because they were just getting really frustrated by having to like redo all of their filters and things. And so that was like, okay, we need to do that. With the feedback, it's like there's lots of improvements to make around the feedback side. So like lots of those tasks are going to be getting prioritized as well. But there's no real kind of, a lot of it is also like gut feeling from me just being in the community on a day-to-day basis and seeing the questions, seeing what's coming up, what questions people are asking, all of this kind of stuff. So a lot of it, which a lot of product managers, I mean, I'm not a product manager, a lot of product managers would probably wince at, is just sort of thinking, okay, like a lot of people are asking for this. We know that this is going to be beneficial. We've talked to a number of people about this, and so we'll sort of move it through. But yeah, at the moment, the prioritization is very much like my feeling of like what's going to be the most valuable for the community to improve one of our goals. And we've got two major goals on the platform. One is the community culture. So just helping people connect and building tighter relationships between people. Like that's a huge goal to aim for. And also the feedback, like quality and also quantity of feedback as well. So helping people get more feedback and better feedback on their solutions. So those are two things that we're really driving towards. And if a new feature or an update or something like that will drive us towards one of those two, like that will definitely get prioritized. So those are our kind of North Stars, plural. Excellent. So now, Jade, how do you recommend a junior developer getting into their first role other than build your portfolio? What should we look for in the company? This is a really good question. So this is, a lot of the questions I get is very kind of similar to this. And I mean, you've already touched on it about kind of building your portfolio. Like that's the thing that will get your foot into the door with a lot of companies. But when you say what you should look for in a company, it's more saying, obviously, like how do you get to know a company is right for you, which is important. That's so important, because so many people would just take a job offer from a company because it's like their first job offer, and they'll just take it because they're just so excited about being a professional developer, but it might not actually be the right company. So what you should look for in the company, like this is very subjective based on what you want. For instance, like if you want to work purely remotely, then obviously it has to be a remote role and maybe a remote first company, which a lot more companies are doing these days, obviously as a result, unfortunately, of the coronavirus pandemic. And so like filtering out those kind of things, and also maybe if it's something that you're interested in, you could sort of go down and start looking at companies in a specific industry. A really basic example of this would be like, if you're really interested in music, you could dive into and start looking at companies like Spotify or SoundCloud or something like this to blend in some passions. But that's not necessarily, you can work in any company being a developer, which is a great thing. So what you should look for in a company, like, do they align with your values? Like a big thing recently is, some of you may have seen the fallout with what's happened at Basecamp and some of their changes in their policies. And so it's a good idea to kind of read up on the company as much as possible. Like go to their website, read their blog, see what their employees are posting, like whether they're posting articles, all of this kind of stuff, what they're posting maybe on Twitter and things like this. And do your due diligence about the company, because if they don't fit with your ideals and the way that you want to work and your worldview, then actually it could be a kind of not a very nice experience. My first company that I went to, I was just so happy to get a job that I just accepted the first offer that was given to me, and they were doing like 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. working you as hard as possible, and I literally quit after a month because I was just like, this is not in any way a company that I want to work for. So I didn't do my due diligence. Make sure you do yours, and research as much as you can about the company, the employees, if they're posting on Twitter, blogging, all of this kind of stuff, to try and gauge a bit of the culture. And also just ask so many questions. I've interviewed a number of people before, and when the interviewer then asks a question of like, do you have any questions for me? It's immediately a red flag if the candidate says, oh no, I think we've covered everything, because you 100% wouldn't have covered everything. And that's normally a red flag to think, actually, maybe this person isn't as interested in this job role as I thought they might be. Or maybe they haven't done their research, which again is another red flag as an interviewer. So make sure you go to any interview that you've got, like equipped with as many questions as you can, and it will only be a good thing. Like the more questions that you've got, the more impressive it will be on the hiring manager's side of things, because it will show that you've done your due diligence, you've done your research and all of this kind of thing. So major ones: research the company, research employees as well, if they're kind of vocal on Twitter and other platforms, just to get an idea about what their culture might be like. Also, ask as many questions as you can in the interview, and just make sure you come equipped with those to the actual interview itself. Excellent. Ice Coffee's asking kind of same question as Jade's, but then also what you should expect from yourselves picking up your first gig. Don't expect too much. Like in this, like this is true of you and the company. Like if the company expects you to just immediately, with no support or anything, like this was my first experience in web development, was just to like sit there with a laptop and just start doing stuff and not offering really any support or pair programming or anything like this, then that's a big red flag. So what you should expect from yourself is just to try and like be as good a teammate as possible. In your early days as a junior developer, the best things that you can do is show enthusiasm, a willingness to learn, and a positive kind of attitude towards work, but then also your teammates as well. For entry-level roles, companies are often hiring, they're hiring for kind of attitude and personality and things like this. Obviously, you have to show that you can write some code and build websites, but with an entry-level developer, you expect to train them. You expect to kind of mold them, and like it doesn't matter necessarily if you haven't used Vue.js and we use Vue.js or React or something like that. It'd be great if you've got some Vue or React projects, but we would expect to show you how we do things and how we work with those tools. So don't expect too much from yourself. Ask as many questions as you can. Again, the more questions you can ask as you're a junior, it shows that you're willing to learn, willing to improve. So just focus on being a good teammate, learning, be sort of passionate and positive, and that will be the perfect sort of first thing. And then you'll start, as you get used to the code base, you'll start sort of building up your responsibilities, and then you'll be off to the races. So Mikhail is asking, how would you use Redux or Context API with React for more advanced challenges like the e-commerce one? Or would you use, Redux or Context API? I'm like, people bash Redux a lot, but for large scale projects, I still don't think there's a better way to actually manage state especially like in a React project. So the Context API is great, but for large scale projects, it can actually get quite messy working with the Context API. So I would actually use Redux. We use Redux on Frontend Mentor, and it's just brilliant to work. I really like Redux, and for large scale projects, it just helps so much with state management. So I would go with Redux. Play around with both. Maybe do some smaller challenges with both, and see what the differences are. Like what I like, someone else might actually say, no, actually, I much prefer the Context API. So yeah, I would just play around with both. Try a project with Redux, try a project without Redux, form your own opinions around that. But my personal preference would be to go with Redux as well. And one more from Mikhail as well. So would you use a different tech stack if you started Frontend Mentor today? On the front end, I'm actually really happy with my my decisions with on the front end side of things. There's a couple of packages that we're gonna look to change. So we use Next.js, as I mentioned, and styled components. These are two things that have just gone from strength to strength. Like Vassell, who created Next, have just done an incredible job with the framework, and so many improvements have been made over the year, and it's just a delight to work with. So Next.js, if I was building it from the ground up today, I would reach for Next.js straight away. I would also reach for styled components straight away. So it would look very, very similar. I would also use Redux as well for state management. One thing that I wouldn't use, that we do use at the moment, is a package called Redux Form, which was great, but then also it started to become kind of more and more apparent that actually you shouldn't be holding form state within the Redux store. So actually we're going to look to move to either, there's one called Formic, or there's React Hook Form, which also look like very, very good packages, like really nice packages to work with forms in React projects. So we'd look to change those. On the back end, we use Node with a MongoDB, and we use kind of Mongoose and Express as well. And we're actually, at the moment, we're in the middle, or Mike is in the middle of a refactor on the back end, where we're actually going to look to move the back end over to Rails. So Ruby on Rails. And instead of kind of Ruby on Rails and a Postgres SQL database. So this is because, like, as the code base has grown, and as Frontend Mentor has grown, actually, so we're starting to fight against Mongo, especially with a lot of the things that we're doing. And we could potentially put a SQL database on instead of Mongo and just keep the Node API, but we're thinking of actually going with a more fully fledged kind of backend framework like Rails, for instance, because Mike's great on like Node or with Rails, but he also thinks that we can move kind of much faster if we migrate the API to Rails. So on the API, we might actually be moving over to Ruby on Rails. We were potentially going to do it last month, but actually we put a pin in it because there's a couple of things to talk through first. So we may or may not do that. It's still slightly up in the air, but we're probably like more likely than not, we'll be moving to a Rails API. Grace is asking, how many pro subscribers are there? So at the moment, there's around 1,500 pro subscribers at the moment, which is great considering the pro subscription only launched in August. Having kind of 1,500 pro subscribers at the moment is amazing, and that's what helps us grow and bring in more people and build this project to hopefully to its potential. I've got lots and lots of plans for it, lots of plans to help developers, to help you all sort of improve, and also mostly in the future as well, help you find jobs, which is going to be huge. So yeah, about 1,500 pro subscribers at the moment. And yeah, thank you so much to any pro subscribers out there. You're helping support the company, and you're helping support the platform, and help us build out new features and focus as much as possible on improving it. Cyril was asking us, so this was in response to Grace, where we were talking about the reporting side of things. Grace said font sizes in pixels. And Cyril was asking, do you mean font sizes in pixels, not in ems or rems? Yeah, so like if you have your font size in pixels, it's not such a great thing. You have to change it in lots of places. It's a static unit, so it can have some issues on older browsers, especially with like zooming. On newer browsers, it's not such an issue, but mostly it's for maintaining your code. If you've got font sizes in pixels all over the place, and then you're changing those font sizes for different screen sizes, you would have to go into your media queries and change loads and loads of different things. Whereas with ems or rems, my preference is to use rems. You can like just focus on the root, the HTML font size, and you can kind of change that if you need. I know there's a little bit of a debate as to whether you should touch the HTML font size or not, but I very much I think that especially with the rems, it helps out massively. So Tadiko is asking, have you thought about a follow feature? There are some people worth following who have interesting solutions and a lot to learn from them. Sometimes it's easy to miss their solution. Yes, definitely. So this is, I was mentioning to you before about two of our major kind of North Stars. One of them is community culture, kind of bringing people together more and helping you form relationships with other members of the community. And then also sort of quality and quantity of feedback that you can get on your solutions. And following definitely fits into the first one, where it's improving the whole culture around the community. So what we're going to be doing is we will be adding a following feature, so you'll be able to follow other people on the platform. Any challenges that you start, you'll immediately kind of automatically follow that challenge. So you'll see solutions for the challenges that you've started. And also we're going to be adding tags as well at some point, and you'll be able to follow tags. So for instance, if you are working with React and you want to see as many React projects as possible, you'll be able to follow the React tag. And then what we'll have, so at the moment we've got the solutions timeline. So we're going to keep the solutions timeline, which is just like a flood of everything. But then also what we'll have is a feed tab as well. And the feed tab will be everyone that you're following, all of the challenges that you've started, all of the tags that you're following. And so that will be a much more kind of curated timeline, whereas the solutions timeline will stay as it is, and will be more of a dump of just all of the latest solutions, and you can filter those as well. But yeah, so following is something that we're going to be adding as well. It's kind of debating. I'd be interested to hear opinions on this as well. Kind of debating at the moment whether to have public following figures on the profile or not. My inclination is to not have it as public and just have it as private, so you know how many followers there are. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like Twitter and stuff where people is very much like publicizing follow accounts and things, and people feel like they have to start kind of trying to game the system and all this kind of stuff to show that they've got more followers. So I'm kind of leaning towards maybe keeping it private so you can see how many followers you've got and how many you've gained, but other people can't. But interested to hear people's thoughts on that. So yeah, following will be happening. I don't have a time frame on that, but it's very high up on the priorities list at the moment, because that will help people kind of engage with each other more and follow each other and all of this kind of stuff. It will be great. So Claire saying, I'm excited about the reports. I think a lot of people will find them very useful. Thank you. I hope so too. Yeah, I really hope. I'm really excited for it. Grace is saying, it's a brave thing to have left your job and started your own project like Frontend Mentor. How did you make that decision, and what led you to take the plunge? So with Frontend Mentor, the idea of Frontend Mentor came out of my teaching work that I do part-time at General Assembly here in London. And so I was already a kind of full-time developer and then teaching in the evenings and some weekends as well at General Assembly. And a lot of my students, they would come out of one of the courses, like especially the 10-week front-end dev course that I taught, which was like 2 evenings a week for 10 weeks. And they would come out and say, kind of, what can I do to keep practicing? And I would say, first of all, just keep building your own projects. And to that, they would say, like, I'm an awful designer, so all of my projects that I create always look awful. So where can I go to get good designs? I would always say for that, like, go to Dribble and then try and recreate Dribble shots. But then they would always come back to me and say, like, how can you actually do that though? Because they don't provide assets or anything, so it's really, really hard. There's a lot of friction there. So that kind of got me thinking about, like, maybe this is a good platform that people will need. And so I created this like really simple static site to begin with, I created this, really, it was a static site, just one challenge at the very beginning, just to test the idea that people would want to download a project and then with all of the assets in there and optimized and all of this kind of stuff. And I built it within like a couple of days and got it up there. And yeah, people started to download it and ask for feedback on Twitter and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, like, oh, actually, maybe there's something here. Maybe people will find this useful. And so what I did, I didn't immediately just sort of drop everything and go with Frontend Mentor. I still kept working. I was doing, so I quit my job, but I was doing contract work as well and contract teaching and things. So I was able to drop my hours, but I was still able to keep the lights on. Well, lights aren't on and it's starting to look very dreary outside here in London. So sorry if this is a bit dark at the moment, but able to metaphorically keep the lights on at home. But then I was able to focus more on just building Frontend Mentor. And first of all, built it as just a fully free platform for everyone with challenges and all this kind of stuff. At first, it was just JPEGs, and very quickly someone asked, can we have the design files as well? So I kind of thought in my head, actually, that would be a good additional, like an add-on that people could have. And at that point, it was like a single purchase thing. But then as we went through, and my idea for Frontend Mentor is to make it as open as possible and as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, by giving a lot away for free. But then also for the people that really want to build the best projects possible and build great portfolios and get hired as a developer and maybe train on the job once you're already a developer. I wanted to build it into a legitimate business because that would help me then focus on Frontend Mentor more and hopefully kind of lead it to its potential. And so the idea was always to add like a subscription of some sort. And so I kept my job for as long, or my contract work for as long as I could. And then I launched a subscription in August. And then I still had my contract work until January this year, at which point I've started rejecting contracts, unless it's like a one evening thing or maybe a one weekend thing. I'll still do it then. But if it's Monday to Friday, kind of 9 to 5 p.m., I'll reject it now because I'm full-time on Frontend Mentor. And so I did a very gradual, slow transition. And the thing kind of, how did I make the decision was just because like the community was getting so big and also the subscription was starting to get enough to pay myself a salary, which I need because of like rent and everything. And so I was able to then make that switch in January. And yeah, it's like, this is literally my dream job. I've created this company and I sort of pinch myself every day because it's the exact perfect company that I want to build, with mentorship and web development and community and everything. So yeah, I just want to keep on growing it, keep on adding value, as much value as possible to people, and hopefully just keep on growing it as big as it can get as far as the community goes. So yeah, and I personally, I've never been a good employee. Like I've always had my own companies typically. And so yeah, for me, I was very happy when this started to look like it could actually become a legitimate business, because it's great to be able to focus on this. I'm so passionate about this, so passionate about the community and everything. So yeah, it's really a dream to be able to work on. What do we have? Oh yeah, so Grace is giving some good advice for the earlier question about looking for companies. And yeah, looking for a company that has the time and people to support and train you, one that encourages learning. This is huge because yeah, the first company that I was in, they had one other developer. He was fighting fires left, right, and center and had absolutely no time for me whatsoever. And that's why I quit within a month. And that's not what you want as an entry-level developer. You want to go into maybe a slightly more established company with other developers, a budget to train you, an actual kind of schedule for training you, other team members you can pair program with, get feedback from, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a huge one. Tadiko is saying, I know we have solutions in the Challenge Hub after we complete the challenge, but what about adding some filter there to display most liked solutions, for example, from the last month? Yeah, so this is something that we're going to look to add. And my idea around this is to actually have the ability to add featured solutions. So with the points on the platform, we're going to start to add, have it more, the more points you have on the platform, the more things it will unlock. And one of those things would be like the ability to kind of scout out other people's solutions. So if you come across someone's solutions, and like, for instance, Tadiko, you've been doing some absolutely incredible solutions lately. So if I came across one of your solutions and I was like, yeah, that should be featured. And then maybe it could be like a consensus thing where another couple of scouts, like people have earned a certain amount of points on the platform, would then get notified, and then you'd be able to say like, yeah, I agree with this one or not. But then, yeah, we'd be able to have these featured solutions inside of the challenge hub, and then maybe most popular solutions, like you were saying, with filtered by likes and all of this kind of thing as well. So those are some things I've got in my mind at the moment. I haven't kind of thought through the absolute details around all of that yet. The popular solutions, or kind of most liked ones, will definitely be the easiest one to do. But yeah, like that's some thinking that I've got. So like featured solutions and all this, that'd be really cool. And it also means that like as you earn more points on the platform, it means something, because if you're earning more points, it means that you're engaging in the platform and giving other people feedback and stuff like that. So maybe it unlocks, like you become a scout, like the ability to scout out other people's solutions and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I've got lots of thoughts around that. And back to the Redux question. So yeah, Matthias is saying Redux and Redux Toolkit all the way. So yeah, this is Redux Toolkit is an incredible setup for that as well. So yeah, have a look into that for sure. Ice Coffee is saying, I would like to learn server-side. What should I go with? Django, Express, Next, or anything you'd like to suggest for enterprise level development? I mean, out of those, like it's very much down to you in all honesty. It's very much like saying kind of, what do I choose, like React or Vue or anything like this, which my answer would always be, just experiment with them. Like try a tutorial for all of them, like a beginner's tutorial, and then try and build some basic projects, see which ones you like the most, and then go off in that direction. They're all very, very viable options. Next.js obviously uses Node. And so they're all completely viable. They're very good solutions. And the main thing would be like, what do you like working with and what do you prefer as a developer? So take some beginner tutorials, whether that's on YouTube or whatever, and build some very, very basic challenges and projects, and then start to kind of build out from there. And then you'll start to really get a picture of what you prefer yourself. So Ice Coffee is saying, I'm familiar with React and Flux, if that matters in the decision. Yeah, so the Flux architecture was the kind of precursor to Redux. So yeah, Flux architecture is good. And Grace and Tadiko, kind of +1s for private followers. Yeah, I think that's the way I'll go. It's sort of Frontend Mentor as a community. It's not about being like showy or anything. It's about helping each other and helping each other improve as much as possible. So yeah. And Matthias is actually saying, with the private followers, some people in Twitter are moving away from using the public following way of discovered tweets and only using private lists. That's really interesting. And yeah, I think it feels right to go with private numbers. So then it means that you can see if you're improving or not, which is great. Like little kind of competition with yourself or something, and see if your follower count is growing. But it's not overtly sort of showy or anything like that. Yeah, kind of, it feels like it makes sense. Cyril is asking, would it be possible to make a video or explain the way you build a website from challenge to solution? Because there isn't a lot of resources about the method to pass from the model to the actual website. Yeah, so this is one thing I'd actually recommend doing is going to YouTube and just typing in Frontend Mentor, because there's loads of YouTubers out there who have taken on Frontend Mentor challenges and filmed themselves. People like Jessica Chan, Florin Pop, Kevin Powell as well. They've all taken Frontend Mentor challenges and filmed themselves doing it. And I would strongly recommend like checking that out, because then you see multiple ways of approaching the problem. Like Kevin Powell might come at it from a different direction to Jessica Chan, and you might be able to learn something new from each of them. So, but then one thing that I want to do actually is, but this will be more part of the onboarding process. I'm going to create a very, very simple challenge, like literally a kind of 10-minute project. And then as part of the onboarding flow, when new people sign up, there'll be a video there of me where I'll walk people through the first challenge just to get them up and running, show them the workflow, all of this kind of thing. It will be a public challenge. It will be a free challenge on the platform. And also when you start it in the challenge hub, there will be a little link to that video as well. So look out for that. It will be available as a code along for kind of everyone on the platform, but it will be part of the kind of onboarding process for Frontend Mentor so that more people get comfortable with the workflow. I get to talk them through it a little bit, give some tips and tricks and all this kind of stuff. So that is something I plan on doing as well, just for a single challenge. But then I also strongly recommend checking out on YouTube because there's loads of very, very talented developers there completing challenges and building projects. And yeah, Shamu is saying exactly that. Florin Pop and other people are doing, completing challenges on YouTube, which is great. Harsha is asking, is there any need for me to learn Vue or Angular if I'm already familiar with Node? So Node is JavaScript on the back end. So Node is what we call a runtime environment for JavaScript on the back end. Very, very different to Vue and Angular. Vue and Angular are front-end JavaScript frameworks for JavaScript. And so Vue and Angular would be potentially how you would structure and work with your code on the front end, whereas Node is JavaScript. It's a runtime environment for JavaScript on the back end. So yeah, two very, very different things. You wouldn't necessarily need to learn Vue or Angular if you're not looking to become a full stack developer. If you already know Node and you're wanting to stay on the back end, then Node is like all you might need to know. Whereas if you're wanting to work on the front end as well, then yeah, maybe something like Vue or Angular would be good. But again, I would just try and build some small projects with them, figure out which ones you like, and then go from there. So yeah, and Ice Coffee is saying about the frameworks and as well in the comments. Amazing. Brilliant. Well, I hope you've enjoyed. This is an extra long catch up this month because I missed last month. I hope you've all really, really enjoyed that. I've loved catching up with you all again. And I'll be doing another one at the beginning of June. So until then, I'll see you in the Slack and I hope you have a great month. And yeah. See you in June. Take care, everyone. Bye.